Hey everybody, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Cool. Hey, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate the attendance. It seems like it's a nice packed house. So, my name is Enrique. I run Meza Films, and I'm just down the block here off of Van Ness. I'm over at the Bitwise building. I grew up in the area. I grew up in Orange Cove. I went to school in San Diego. I lived in San Francisco, and been back here for about 8 years now. So. During that time, my background was in computer science. I gravitated towards photography through high school, and then later on I did that more as a profession. And then about eight years ago now, I switched over and started doing videography and film work, starting with the DSLR. With the Canon 5D Mark II is what I kind of got my foundation of learning with that camera. So. I don't want to go too much into who I am and what I am. Most of the stuff that I do is commercial work. So. Locally, the things you might have seen would be things from Fresno Pacific University, Pelco, Schneider Electric, and EECU, some of their stuff as well. But I've been super thankful that I've been able to get some work here in the area. I mean, the place is awesome. Fresno's awesome. I love being here. So, with that, I just kind of wanted to just go over just a couple of quick little things that I've done, just show you some examples of some of the work. And then, really, I wanted to see if anybody had any questions as far as any sort of answers here, but I really kind of wanted to go in and kind of just show some lighting setups, maybe walk through a couple different cameras, and then maybe even show, we have a bunch of different cameras back there. Two of the ones that you guys use here at CMAC, and then I brought a red, and then I have also C100. So we can kind of see all the different, the visual looks of each camera, what the sensor sizes are, and how that reflects into your image. Certain cameras are better with dynamic range, all this sort of stuff. We'll kind of discuss that stuff over there, but I just kind of want to show you real quick kind of some of the stuff that I do. Again, like I said, I do mostly commercial work here. The majority of it is all commercial work. So commercial being TV spots, companies needing like a profile, a spot for the company, for their website, anything kind of ranging in that genre, that area. So let me go through, and then I wanted to show you. I was just on a shoot. We're shooting in San Francisco for an app called Breakthrough, which is it's basically you can hire a therapist through your app to get a session, right? So what we were doing is they had a storyboard and everything kind of laid out, and we're going to create these scenarios so that they can use it as a promotional video for this app. So, and that's kind of why I say commercial, like that is considered a commercial project. So this one we did last year. This was for a company here, Pelco, Schneider Electric. It is a new camera that came out last year for them. It's a 360-degree camera. And so they really didn't have any sort of ideas as far as concept, what they wanted to do. All right, so going back to this, they didn't have any sort of idea as far as what they kind of wanted. They just said, we have this new camera that's coming out. We want it to look sexy. We want it to look cool. We want people to kind of want to buy it. So I took some inspiration from a Mac Pro that had a commercial from Apple. They made a commercial for this Mac Pro computer. Do you guys have any Mac Pros here, or is it just iMac?
Just iMac.
So it's a little trash can device. It looks like a trash can, but essentially they made this commercial, and I kind of got some inspiration from that. So just want to run through that. And all of this was done essentially in a dark room. We turned off all the lights. I bought some fluorescent lights from Home Depot, and me and one of the guys that works with me, Riley, we basically stood on one end of the table. We had the camera rigged up on an automated thing that would just go back and forth. And so he had one side, I had one side, and we're just basically going like this and messing with the lights, and we had a monitor. We could kind of see real time what was happening. But I thought it came together pretty nicely, and I feel like it definitely had that sexy factor they were wanting. So let me pull it up. So, like with the, one thing is when you try and film reflective material and with, with lights and everything, that's one of the issues that came up with this thing is how are we going to block the light? So, like I said, we were in a dark room that was all black, and we just put a black, basically made ourselves a black little cave to be in, so that any reflections that would bounce from anywhere else, they wouldn't be there. So, that was something that I thought was a cool way to kind of showcase some of the stuff that we did. So this other spot here is last year as well for a hospital over in Porterville. So this one, I didn't have too much involvement in the actual storyboarding or creation of what this commercial was going to look like. So when you work in the commercial space, a lot of times, more so than not, is that you get somebody. A company comes in, they say, hey, we have this idea for a project. We have basically step-by-step of what each image is supposed to look like, each frame. This is what we're doing, and then it's my job or the company's job to basically make that happen. So this, like I said, was already all planned out. They had talent, they had everything already all set up. I basically just came in, shot it for them, and edited it for them as well, and put it together.
Enrique?
Yeah.
How did you do the camera? Did you keep the camera steady and move the fluorescence over it? And
yeah.
That way, or?
Yep, so it was just the plane with the light, because the dome was reflective, so I knew that it would, as you move it, it would look like it's, something was going on. We shot it in slow motion, we shot it at 60 frames per second so that we can slow it down and even make it more exaggerated, the bend of the light shining through. But because it's a dome, you're going to get that weird kind of, it's not going to be a perfect straight line, it's going to kind of wrap around the whole device, and that's basically what you do. The hardest part is just avoiding reflections or avoiding yourself reflected into the dome, because it's a glass bubble.
Did you shoot that with your red camera?
Yeah, shot with the red. Yeah, this spot here too is shot with the red.
Find an introduction through insight. Find your determination through support. Find your strength through knowledge. With a 10-bed family birth center, caring doctors and nurses, and sophisticated fetal monitoring systems, Sierra View Medical Center is our community's #1 choice for expectant mothers. Sierra View Medical Center, your health partner for life.
The screen looks a little washed out too, but
Yeah,
you get it.
Was that a natural sun flare, or did you put that in post?
No, it was. So that, I can bring it back a little bit, but that spot at the end, it was actually a merging of three different angles, 3 different shots altogether, right? So we had 2 different cameras. One camera was exposed for this, the mountains and the city, and the rest of this was all blown out. But I really knew that I was going to merge the images together. So we went 2 different days for sunrise. The second time we went, we exposed for the sun and for the clouds, so that we can get that properly. And there was another take that we had that was just, the clouds were a little bit better, so I used a kind of a composite of two different clouds. And I essentially just masked some of the border around here, and I let the sun kind of peek through, but that's the sun coming through. So yeah, that's some of the things, yeah, because if you were to see the first shot, it looked terrible. It was just, the mountains were fine, but it was just a big white mess of color in the top, or colorless sky.
So your Mac was made angles and the images for 3 different days?
Yeah, 2 different days, but we had 2 cameras on 2 separate days, and they were shooting a little bit different angle. So the cloud one was, I think, a little bit different. We kind of marked where we were going to shoot both days, so when you kind of put the cameras back, pretty much where they're at. Yeah, and then same focal length, same everything. But yeah, just came back the second day. I think the clouds might have been the second day, because the first day I don't think there were very many clouds to begin with. And then all of this was sped up too, because we shot it in like a time-lapse sequence, so it was, we shot for like 15 minutes while the sun was coming up, and then I just sped it all up so that it felt like the clouds were moving during that shot.
Can you put the shot in motion again?
Yeah.
Roll. Maybe even slower.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. I don't have the original footage here, but.
Find your strength through knowledge. With a 10-bed family birth center, caring doctors and nurses, and sophisticated choice for expectant mothers. Sierra View Medical Center, your health partner for life.
And then I wanted to show you, so this is a piece of software, an online software that I use to basically manage with clients different projects. So I want to show you that. This stuff was shot with the Red. I wanted to show you some stuff that was shot with C100 so that you kind of get the idea of different kind of looks for it.
Can you explain Red?
So Red is just basically a brand of camera. So I don't even think it stands for anything, RED. It's just a brand of camera. It's usually used on higher end, productions. Movies are generally shot, a lot of movies shot with that type of camera. What was the girl with the dragon tattoo? That one comes to my David Fincher uses a Red for a lot of his production stuff. So it's just a different level of camera compared to like a consumer or a prosumer or entry level professional camera. And it just gives advantages are it has dynamic range, which dynamic range means it can see a lot more whites and a lot more blacks. So this one can see, specifically this camera can see 16 different shades of from white all the way to black, whereas a regular DSLR other camera can maybe see 8 or 10. This one has a little bit more leeway and it just the images look richer. You have more flexibility when you're editing and post, things like that. So, that's one of the big things, but it costs a lot of money too. So.
How much? No.
Yeah. Let me see.
Enough that they don't have one here.
This was, we can use this. This is a casino spot. I didn't shoot this, but I'm editing this. This is with a C100. The footage is all shot with C100. But this is a spot for a Indian casino. I think it's just called Indian Head Casino. It's in Oregon. And this is, I'm actually working on this, like I finished doing some of this earlier today for the client. And it's kind of, sometimes you get editing jobs and this is just your typical Indian casino ad.
Luck is in the air at Indian Head Casino. It's a win-win with all the latest slots. Play your cards right at our exciting blackjack tables. Enjoy one of our comfortable and convenient restaurants. And while you're here, join Central Oregon's most rewarding Players Club. Enter discounts, monthly offers, event invitations, and entries for our monthly promotions. For a great time with your favorite games and the most rewarding play. Go where it's always your lucky day at Indian Head Casino.
So one thing to kind of note, the image on these, they're nice, but one thing that for me, and I think as you kind of go more and more into this this profession, is you kind of pick out different things, right? So for me, I noticed that the image is just, it's not as doesn't feel as organic or as rich as say the Red camera. I'm trying to see if I can pull up like a side-by-side kind of comparison to what I kind of have. Something like that versus that. It just seems, this one seems a little more, video-ish. It has a little bit more of a, it's a little more sharp. It's a little bit more, it's just not as organic feeling. Whereas this one to me feels a little bit more filmic, a little bit more, the depth is a little bit different. And that just comes with the cameras too. So as you move on with different cameras, like the smaller ones that you guys have, the camcorders, those have a way different look than even a DSLR, than a C100, which is a Canon C100, or like a Red. They all have their different looks, and there's reasons to use different ones. And we can kind of go into that sort of stuff a little bit too. So what I wanted to show you too is just some of the flexibility you have in post, right? So that one you can kind of see the colors are rich. This is the same commercial, but it's just with no coloring done to it at all. And it might be good to kind of maybe pull them up side by side. I think I can do that. Like that.
Luck is in the air at Indian Head Casino. It's a win-win with the latest.
So you kind of see.
The left one is color corrected, right?
Yeah, so this one's color corrected. It has stuff. So generally, when you shoot stuff, when you go into the more, into the cinema line of cameras, generally you shoot in a flatter profile. So flatter profile means the colors are not as saturated. It's just to give the sensor and your image as much information as possible, right? So if I was to bake in or get these settings in there from the get-go, I wouldn't have any room to bring in the darks or the blacks and the whites and kind of manipulate the image that way. So I thought it would be fun to kind of show kind of before and after kind of comparison between the two images. So all that said is that there's a lot from the beginning to the end. There's shooting, there's also the stuff that happens afterwards to give yourself, to give the image, to make that look or that style that defines kind of either yourself or specific cameras and stuff. But, yes.
Back on that last scene, what did you do lighting-wise? Was that?
No, this one I didn't do anything. I didn't shoot this one. I just was editing this project for a marketing company, so I didn't touch the footage. I'm going to pull up some other footage that we shot yesterday, and we can definitely go break down for some of those lighting scenarios there.
And I want to stay on there for a second.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, it was shot with basically all the saturation, all the stuff out, like
Correct.
allowing you to do all of that stuff in post.
Exactly.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yeah, and the only reason to do that is to be able to create your own look, right? To have a style for it. Because I can do it and I can make it look a certain way, I can give it to you, and you can do something that can look totally different, right? It can have a different vibe or different feel to it. So the people that I work with, for them, they've seen my stuff before, so they wanted me to kind of basically edit for them and give them a look, I guess, that I do, or that is the reason they hired me for that. But
what software did you use to color correct it?
I do everything in Final Cut 10. I use Premiere too. There's plenty of spots that I've done stuff in Premiere. Just recently, at the end of last year, we did some stuff for Adventist Health, and it was all done in Premiere. So for me, I don't get too, like, you gotta be Premiere, you gotta be Final Cut. It's just kind of go with whatever you have, whatever makes sense. All the tools are basically the same. You know, you can cut, you can move, you can manipulate, that sort of stuff. There's some features that make things that I feel for me makes me go a little faster, but it just might be because I've been using it for so long that I'm just, more proficient at using that software versus Premiere. But either of them, I feel like I can produce the same look or same image with either Final Cut or Premiere.
Did you edit the effects in Final Cut as well?
I did most of it. Some of the stuff I pulled into Motion, which is Apple's version of what is it, Adobe After Effects. Yeah, so that's what I use. And I don't go into too much in motion graphics at all. If I didn't do any of that sort of stuff, I usually hire somebody else that specializes in that sort of stuff. Just because for me, it's its own thing. Like if you really want to be really good at it, like to me this is like generic graphics, like super simple, basic stuff. But I know that somebody else who's more advanced could definitely bring a lot more to those graphics and stuff. So, but yeah, everything was done in Motion. Or if not, inside Final Cut. I'm just going to kind of skim through, just showing some of the key shots. But like the big thing is, so when they shot it, like this guy here was on the bluer side, bringing up the skin tones and stuff like that, vibrant, the saturation in the back of the slot machines. Same thing there. So, and that's just kind of one thing to kind of get into the habit of doing, for me at least. I have a friend of mine who's just getting into it as well too, and I've been kind of doing some one-on-one lessons with him, and he was like, hey, how can you create, like, I just want this look like in the camera, what setting can I use to do? I was like, well, there's not really setting that you can press, it's not going to make it look like that. And DSLRs kind of help a little bit because they have somewhat of a baked in look already, and that's fine, but really to kind of get into that, if you're doing any sort of anything that you want to kind of put your stamp on it, color grading is definitely that. For me, is what I think kind of makes you stand out from other people, right? Is that you have that particular look that you do, that people can recognize your work or will want you for that specific style. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the interface that you're using now, and is that a subscription or?
It is, yeah. So this site is called frame.io. And I think it's free if you use only so many gigabytes, but offer frame.io, and it's just basically a video collaboration site. So when you sign up, see if there's pricing somewhere. Let me see if I go to mine, if it'll tell me the pricing. I know there's a price. I know that it's free for a certain amount of gigabytes, you know, so if you're only working on, you know, a project or two, I think this is definitely a really useful tool. So some of the key things are that I can kind of talk a little bit about, and we can pull that, that casino thing again too. Let me see if there might be another one that might be better. Yeah, they have some commenting on here, but essentially what you would do, you'd create your project, then you can add collaborators to it, right? So this guy Michael is part of the marketing company. He can put comments on this thing, right? So if we're going through the commercial here, and he says, oh, you know, I don't like that lady's expression, you can hit this little thing, or you know, you can circle around it, annotate it, and then you know, change this. You hit it, and then at that time code, it will then. I'm going to do it, but let me turn off the notifications so that he won't get notified. But it's really useful, especially you know, if you're dealing with any type of client stuff, not having to have them either come sit right next to you or give you an email with a bunch of different list of 50 different changes or what have you. It's easy to just, hey, go to this website, mark it up, tell me what you want, and then you know, when you're ready, you can go back in and make those changes.
What was it called again?
It's called frame.io.
.io.
Yeah,
Okay.
instead of .com.io.
Okay, thank you.
The people you're working with aren't here in Fresno.
This company is in Fresno. That's their client, so but they don't have in-house production team, so they hired me out to do the editing for them.
Do
So
you have levels of how they can edit, or, you know, you could you have, like, people could share in, you get the notification, they're on the document, or
exactly,
they're in the
there'll
thing.
be a trail, a list. They'll get emailed when you put a notification on there. You can even do things like here, you know, mark complete, you know, and then it'll, all right, I did that, and you kind of go through and mark all your items. So again, like if I went through here, like, you know, if for some reason, you know, I said, well, I can just. I hate using
Are these videos private on the account once you upload them?
Yeah, so nobody, you can't see them, and so I have like different projects have different people that are in it, and they won't see the other clients' work. It's just whatever they're allowed to view. So like I said, for this one, if I said change her, you know, change or let's do swap out with another, you know, person. So you hit submit. Now it'll be on there. So if I'm here, if I go there, it'll take me right to that point of the video. So really useful tool. Like I said, I use it for all my projects. All right.
It seems really responsive.
Yeah, you gotta have a good connection, and it seems like they have a good connection here. So yeah, I've heard some clients where if their bandwidth is pretty crappy, they'll say, oh, okay, there's another way to do it. So there are other options too. So if you wanted to just share that video out, you can just do, you know, project sharing, and you can just send them a link to like a generic landing page with a video on it. And that's all private too. But yeah, like I said, all these have, like this one has different collaborators. You know, they have different collaborators, and they can't see one another unless I add them to a specific project. Yeah, so we did, you know, there's a number of different takes in there. So so for this particular scene, we were in they rented a house. So we were in a house, bedroom. You know, this is the bed. There's a big window here with those shutters, and another window with the shutters, and then along that side there was a whole wall of windows that walked out to the back patio area. So one thing that you have to, when you're dealing with a lot of light, is like, okay, how are we going to manage all of this light coming through? Plus we also want to light him without overexposing any of the background. So for this particular scene, we had a Kino Flow, a Diva light, which is a little bit bigger than the one you guys have there. We'll show you that one there, which you can kind of see. Now, kind of a key tell for a lot of stuff. If you ever look at magazines or what have, if you look at their eyes, you'll see where the light's coming from, right? So you can see that it's up to the right. So we just had one big Diva light here coming back this way, and you see some of his hair light, right? That's to kind of separate him from the background. So the other thing that we had was we had the main light here, another light probably right about here shining back to the top of his head. So something like this, if I pointed this small little light and it was, then you can kind of see like it would, a little far away, but add a little bit of separation to you so that you don't, the big thing is you don't want images to look flat. So by doing that, that separates him from the background. So now it's not just a flat image, it kind of feels like it has a little more dimension to it. And then on the other side, because once we kind of evened all this light out, this background started to become a little bit too dark because we were exposing for this area here. So what we did was we had another diva light that was just basically, it was dimmed a little bit, but just using that as a fill for the background so that it matched what was going on up here. So it didn't seem like it was really dark. So this was just a 3 light kind of setup for this. So this is probably another good one to kind of talk about. So all this was just B-roll. So B-roll is just picking up shots to be cut into his dialogue later. So the whole thing was he was going to walk out of the bathroom. He looks at his phone. You're going to see the reverse of his phone. He sees his family. He's happy, and he puts it back in his pocket. But when we had this set up here, we had that same diva light was here pointing back towards the door. You might be able to kind of see, somebody walked by here, but you can kind of see the shadow that it's casting, right? So you can kind of see that the shadow is casting this way, so that the shadow is casting here, so the light's coming from, in the scene coming down this way. And then the other thing that we needed to do, so once we lit that part of it up, the foreground is now lit, but this looked like a big black hole. So what we did is we put another light, and the reason we left the door closed a little bit is because there was a C-stand right there, and the light was right there, so we closed the door a little bit just to block the stand out of it so you wouldn't see that the light was there. And we just kind of we shined it up to the ceiling, and they kind of created or filled in that light. So now we have the background lit and this and the foreground lit that are relatively close to one another. There's one that we had a problem with. This one, I believe all we used is a light on his right side to fill him in a little bit here, but I just brought, I use an ND filter to basically cut it down so that I can see some of the outside. Because once you do that, so you have 2 options, right? If you're looking at the scene, you have 2 different options. You can either expose for him, which will make him right, but by doing that, there's so much light coming through here, you're going to overexpose this area, and that's going to become a big white blob. So what we ended up doing was I exposed for the window and got it as close as, without overexposing as possible. And then we brought in a light on the right hand side, and I think it was actually just right over him. So it was, a light like this, just shining right on top of his, filling him in right there, so that we compensated for my underexposing to get that. I brought in the light here to fill that part in. And I think there was one here too, because you can see some shininess from this headboard. I think we popped the pillow up to avoid showing, I think it was a little bit harsher there, but so there was one light here, and I know for sure one on top of him.
Enrique,
Yeah.
what's your technique for knowing what to expose for in a shot? Do you always go for the brightest thing and expose for that, or?
Oh, it kind of just depends on what we're trying to do, right? So in this scene, we wanted to show the outside. So we could have easily let's just close the shutters and call it a day, right? And just put one light in and we're good. But we wanted to get a sense of open, airy feel, so we wanted to make sure that we got this outdoor scenery in the shot. So that kind of dictated what we're shooting, and what the storyboard says is kind of what we're dictating. We talk to the clients there and say, do we want this do you want it to show, do you want to close it? And I think also we had shot another angle of this, and the shutters were open, so we wanted to keep the shot continue, make it seamless, so that if we edit between the two, you're not going to see shutters closed, shutters open. It'll be the same thing no matter what angle you see it from.
You mentioned NV filter?
ND, yeah, a neutral density filter, and I have some here, and I can show you what they are.
It's a visible filter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just basically think of like a pair of sunglasses in front of your lens.
Okay.
So, and there's reasons why you'd want to use it, and I can kind of go into that a little bit more because it's better to visually see that than to kind of describe it. Another cool one, which was, let me see. this was it here. So we had the kind of the hardest time to try and, because also as we're going, the sun was basically moving right along those windows, so we were kind of having to battle the sun. So for me, I wish I would have been able to knock it down a little bit more. So it's still going to be bright, but it wasn't as bright as it was. So what we ended up doing is we have gels, right? So you guys have probably seen gels. There's different, there's different gels for different things. This one that we used in that scene was an ND filter, but in a gel form. So if I didn't put anything there, it would have been like it was just crazy bright. It would have looked ugly, and it was looking really ugly until I said, you know what, let's get some ND and let's just tape it on the inside of the frame so that like I said, it acts like a pair of sunglasses. Basically, anything that comes through is going to be, I think it was like a 2-stop ND or something like that. So anything that came through was going to basically be diffused or brought down the brightness of the light coming through it. It's just like think of it like a pair of sunglasses, right? It's just basically knocking down the light so that now that when we shoot this, it's not a big overexposed area in our image. It's more controlled for it. And then we just had one light in front.
So you had a neutral density film that you put over the window.
Yeah.
To cut down the amount of light coming in.
Yep. And then for this, we had to take it off. And that's kind of why we brought in more light because we, at this point, wanted to see outside now. So we had to bring in lights to kind of compensate for that, which I kind of talked about already. Let's go into the other.
So in the second scene, you kind of did the opposite of the first. For the first one, you exposed for the sunlight, and for the second one, you exposed for the
subject there, kind of, or yeah,
right.
Kind of, yeah. It was we exposed still for the window area, but we wanted to get that properly exposed and then supplement it with the light. Whereas the other one, we wanted to have some of the light, but we wanted him to be more. The exposure was on him, right? So he wanted him to be properly exposed, and we wanted to somehow block that light. So that's what we used. So a little bit of a reversal of roles there. So there's another good one that we used light just coming from outside the window. And I think she might be in the other card. Yeah, so she was supposed to be like a postpartum mom, like super depressed, not feeling good. All right, so this is a good one here. So for this scene, and this baby was so huge. I think she was 11 months, but I felt like the baby was way too big. It should have been a smaller baby. But anyways, I didn't cast the baby. So for this scene, all we had, let me see if I can pull up her eyes looking up front. Might be able to tell. You can kind of tell here, there's one light that was basically, if this is where she was at, there was a light here, shining right to my camera right, shining down to fill her in front. And then from the outside, we ended up doing I don't think we have anything here like that, but a big white foam board that the sun was kind of over that way. We just had a big white piece of foam board, and we just shined the light right back into the window to give her some of this separation of light. When she moves more this way, I'll fast forward a little bit, but when she moves this way, you'll see that the light is kind of then filling her in from the side and in the front of her face. But those are the things you want to think about for creating some separation and then creating a mood or a look, right? If we would have shot it without anything, it would just look, the light coming through, we would have to expose for the light coming through, and it would look either really streaky or it just wouldn't look very, very good. Let me fast forward a little bit. So you kind of see that, right? So before she looked outside, there was no sun there. You can kind of see these little hot spots are all here from that reflector bouncing the light back into her face. But if it wasn't there, it just would have been really dark and you wouldn't have been able to see her face at all.
Where was the person who had the reflector? On this side of the glass?
Outside. Outside.
Outside.
Yeah, there was a pool out there, and they were just standing by the pool, just bouncing the light back in. I think there's another good one.
Was that a kid?
No, it was somebody else. Like everybody, they're all talent. Everybody was brought in.
How much do you think the kid made for that?
I don't know. So you kind of see on this one, we're kind of playing with the light, the same kind of concept. So this is, you kind of see, right, that was a little, for me, I felt that was just a little too, well, you can't really tell too much on that one there, but it was a little dark for my taste. I wanted to kind of fill her in, because even though it was going to be a depressing kind of thing, I still wanted to kind of give her a little bit of a beauty kind of look, right? Fill in some of this area here. So you can see in her eyeballs that the reflection, there's a light right up above her. And then what I wanted to do, we just left the light coming in from outside because that was perfectly fine. And there was another door on that side where the other guy was shining the light back in there. And you'll see as we go along, I'll just fast forward a little bit, you kind of see him playing with the light to try and figure out, you know, how to do it. And I think we ended up, yeah, we put, so at the beginning it was just too bright, like that was too much, right? So what we did is we got a piece of a diffusion paper, and then he set it up on a stand, and then he bounced the light through the diffusion paper and then into her, so that makes it a little softer instead of being as harsh. So as we go later on, he refined it, and then it became a little softer, while still giving her a little bit of definition and making her look, you know, not as flat. You know, I think that's the thing when you start out is, like, a lot of times there are certain scenarios where you want things to look flat. You know, especially beauty stuff. You want, you know, women particularly to look nice and avoid wrinkles and things like that. Especially in movies, you'll see that a lot. It's all about light. You know, the big thing is all about how you manipulate the light. So anytime you can kind of play with that a little bit more, the better. You just have a richer image. But the same kind of concept for this thing here too. So these are they're talking, their dialogue parts, but you know, this one actually had two lights because it was getting a little dark and we wanted to kind of fill it in. So you can see there's one light on her right, another light on her left, and then another light back, you know, a few feet back where that dining table was at, shining back at her hair to kind of separate her a little bit from the background. All right. Okay. Well, that's it right there. Anybody have any other questions? Nope. All right. Let's head on back over there. Oh, it doesn't matter.
You're not going to do close-ups, are you? All right. Because I screwed up the shave. Cut myself somewhere around here. How do you, you know when you get talent on camera, a lot of times they're really nervous, they're jittery, they don't act natural. How do you calm their nerves?
You know, like for me, the trick would be, especially if you're using, like if they need to read stuff, right, or do things like that, when it's more of a documentary, just kind of like you just kind of have to go with it. But like for the guy that we shot, he was not as polished as the girl. So we just kind of ran through it a couple times. You know, sometimes we rolled, sometimes we didn't. We were just kind of having them just be as comfortable, saying it over and over and over till Johnny, which was the director, he felt that, all right, like now let's go for reals and be serious about it. Yeah, because it can be a little intimidating. I mean, I've been on the other side too when people talk to me and I'm like, oh crap, like this is really, it's not as easy as I'm telling people it is, right? So it's just a matter of just trying to get those nervous kind of things out, which for me, I just found that it's just having them just start going into it, or trying to relate to somebody as quickly as you can, and making them feel like you're their friend, and not, you know, like, all right, you go, and you know, trying to talk to them by their name and things like that. So, and then can we cut these lights in the back for a bit, and then we can bring them back on. Let me scoot this out of the way. So. And then I think the easiest thing, let me put this up higher. Let's get one of those Kinos over here. So fluorescent, so there's different types of lighting, right? So the lighting that, I don't own any fluorescing lighting. All of my stuff is tungsten, meaning they're just like the hot lights. I like fluorescents just because they're really nice, but they're also, for the good ones, they're expensive.
What about LED lighting?
Yeah, well, I want to show some of that too. I don't know how good these are here, but I don't like LED lighting. at least not the ones, the stuff that I've seen, I don't like it too much just because I think the color, there's a thing called CRI, the color rendition index, and for the longest time the CRI value on the LED lights were pretty funky. They'd either give you like a green cast or some sort of weird color that was just not very pleasing. So I've never used LEDs at all. I like fluorescents a lot, but again, you have to buy the good ones or at least good bulbs to make sure that the color comes out nice, because you can have a mix of different colors in there and it'll look like they're sick, right? They're sickly or something. But just because for affordability, for me, the tungsten lighting is good. The only downside to tungsten lighting is that it's hot. Like, if you put in 4 or 5 lights or even 3 lights, you put in a lot of light at them and it gets hot, or it can be uncomfortable for somebody. Or if somebody's like prone to being sweaty, then that's another thing you have to deal with as well. All right, so like I said, for me, I like fluorescents. They're like, this is probably for interview stuff. This is probably one of the easiest and best ways to kind of get some nice soft light. Positioning, like I always like to have, I tend to do stuff a lot softer than some other people. Like I like to have a little bit more of a beauty look, a prettier image. So for me, kind of going up a little bit above their face, and then strike this, and then you can have them look up. And then there's this thing called these are grids. So basically, it narrows your beam of light. So instead of it being, maybe, this is I'm just saying this, but maybe it's, instead of it being 6 feet wide, now it's only, 2 feet or 3 feet wide, right? So that's all the grid really does, is just narrows your beam of light. So you can kind of see, and the closer you get your subject, the softer the light will be. And if you pull it back, it'll kind of get a little harsher and a little different. So you always kind of want to get it either right up, at least for me, if you want to do something soft, you want to get it right up above. Right or left doesn't matter. It depends if you're going to be shooting that way. You want to have it facing the direction that he's doing, but he's just facing straight forward, so that's fine. And then so we can kind of see. Focus a little bit. So right now, to me, that image is like super flat, right? And let's see if I can.
Really looks like kind of a greasy forehead. That's flat to you?
As far as like depth, it doesn't, like you seem like you're just right on the same plane as the background.
Okay.
For me, right? So there's not a clearly, there's no texture, there's no dimension,
Definition.
Well,
definition to you.
I'm Asian, so my face is flat.
All right, so, and then one thing we'll notice, so it's pretty warm. I think, are these daylight or are these?
Tungsten.
Tungsten, okay.
Yeah.
So, you can't see what I'm doing on the screen here, but I'm basically adjusting the white balance of.
Are you gonna post that on
of the
Instagram?
bulbs.
Don't forget to tag me.
You should be periscoping it. I would watch this.
So this is more of a flat, earlier it was a little warm, right? So another thing you want to work, so starting from the beginning, right? Lighting is set up, but there's also the camera that you want to get in. So one of the really nice things about a red is that that you don't, not that you don't have to worry about it, but that if you mess up the white balance, you can change it afterwards to whatever you want, just like a raw image in a stills camera. So if I was to shoot this and I said, oh crap, I shot everything and it was way too warm, I can just go in, type in, I wanted it to be 3200 Kelvin instead of 56 or whatever it was. I can just change it without affecting anything whatsoever. And I have some leeway as far as I can change the ISO afterwards, and mess with the exposure, stuff like that. So I mean, the big thing with like a red and even any cinema cameras that you have, especially if you're dealing with raw cinema cameras, is that you have flexibility in post to be able to manipulate the image a lot more than you can with any other camera, right? And well, your brother has the other red, right? So
yes,
you get the idea.
How much time do you get on a card?
Yeah. So yeah, this one is not too bad. This I get about an hour. This is a 256 gig card, which I'll pop it in here.
Enrique, can you also talk to the talents wearing glasses and reflection on the glasses?
Exactly. So here you can kind of see, since the light's a little up, if he looks up, he's going to get it for sure. So a way to kind of remove some of that is just to go up a little higher, right? and then don't look straight forward, and you kind of remove some of those things, right? But the only thing with that is then you start introducing now there's shadows in his face, right? So another thing you can kind of do too is sometimes I've had them like just move your glasses up a little bit, just a little bit, and it'll change the reflection of the whatever's reflecting. It'll move the reflection away. So like how we did there was an example in red where, in one of the red footage where I pulled up, and I think there was a door that was cracked open. Oh, no, that was for the light. There was another scene that I didn't show you guys where we were getting a reflection from the light because there was a glass door leading outside, and the way for us, the easiest thing would we just crack the door open a little bit, maybe 3 inches, 4 inches, and then move the reflection away from the camera. So I moved it off to the side, and then that got rid of the reflection. If you can do that, that's the easiest fix. Other than that, you have to move your lights all the way around and stuff. So looking up here, another super easy thing to do, like if say you only have one light, even bringing like a piece of foam core. I got this at Allard's for $5, $6 or something. But if you bring this in, look up Alex real quick. Just out of frame, and then getting some of this. I'm gonna take off this grid just so I can get more light. Show you here. How does this come off, Cloud?
Yeah, I think it's all the Velcro.
There you go. Okay, we've got to take all of them off.
Yeah.
So you got that looking, just look about here somewhere. And then now this is way bright.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah. Is there a dimmer on this?
Yes.
So we got that looking forward. And then another way we can do like to fill in certain areas is we would bounce this board. Like if, say you're dealing with a woman or somebody that you don't want to show, shadows under the neck or something, an easy way to do that, we can punch in a little bit so we can kind of get rid of that. But, and then, so if I kind of go there, you kind of see on his cheek how that comes in and out, right? So that's a super easy way. This light's not putting out tons. This is not putting out tons of. Because what I can do. All right, look forward. So you probably see it more with. You can you see like what I'm trying to get at is that shadow right there under on his cheek. On his cheek, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's an easy way to just kind of fill in. Just it acts like another light, right? It'll just play like another light that you fill in, and you can see it from right here. Even you don't have to look at the monitor, but you can see his cheek on his face there too. Or if you're outside, right? So say you're doing something outside, this could be all you really need to act as a light. Just use the sun, and you kind of bounce it in his face, and you get that right. Another thing to be a little bit more on the dramatic side is you can use black, which takes away the light, right? So now what we're doing instead of that is we're absorbing the light. So I think it'll have to be, I'll have to be even tighter to see this. You kind of see like, you see his cheek there. So what we're doing is we're making it a little bit more like defined, a little bit more, a little more dramatic, I guess. Probably make it more pronounced. Maybe lowering it. You can kind of see that there. It look even more like to you kind of almost get it to like where right before it's in the frame, but if you do that, it's subtle, but it definitely adds a little bit of something there. So that's another, like these, they cost, I probably spent like $10 for these things, and they definitely, and the other thing too you can do is like, you use it as a flag, basically as a way to cut light altogether, right? So say we didn't want light to be hitting the back of his head, then we do something like that. Now it looks like he's, somewhere else, like it's not, because right now what we're doing is we're preventing the light from hitting the background. It's still hitting his face, but now it looks like he's in, he's like in a black room or something, right?
Can I take a quick picture? Because a friend of mine wants to do interviews like it's in limbo, like it's all black, and that's like perfect. I just want to show him. her to get at.
Yeah, and that's all, that's all you gotta do, and,
You're not gonna ask me.
Wait, what?
Yeah, and that's all we're doing is just, we're still leaving it on him, but we're just preventing the light from going to the background,
I'll tag you on Instagram. Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Very cool.
I had
Yeah.
a question, Enrique.
Yeah.
Do you use any reflectors, like the silver-sided or
Yeah.
gold, in your production?
Yeah, we use that, when you're doing stuff like outdoor, like, or even for something like this, it would definitely work. So say she, it's a person that we want to make sure that they're lit nice and soft. What I could even do, if it's only gonna be their headshot, just have it like right here. And that'll fill in some of that, underneath the chin stuff, so. Let me pull it back up. So instead of having it be dark there, it'll remove wrinkles, especially, like I keep saying, like women, but that's generally who we want to avoid any sort of complaints, like, oh, I look terrible, or what have you. So something like that, it's out of the frame, but it's still doing the job there, right? And that's all, they could just hold it on their hands, or just put on a piece, on like a little stool or something, and there.
Suntan with their neck.
Yeah, exactly. Things like those suntan things that they put, when people are laying down sunbathing. So that's one thing. Another thing I want to show you is to do the backlight, right? So let me pull this one out here. Is there another outlet back here somewhere?
There isn't, but we got another sphere.
Is this one? So like all the stuff I own is this Lowell brand. It's inexpensive, it's good, but so the downside is it's hot. That's the only thing. The only negative thing I can say about them. So now with some of that, and it's a little bright, but we'll look forward. Look up. So what we did is then at that point created a little bit of a. Let me turn it off and on so you kind of get the effect. But
Oh, jeez. Is that a 51.2?
85.
Oh, 85. It's really cool looking inside
So
the lens.
from there, from there to there, and it just adds that little, that little extra dimension to a shot that just makes it a little nicer looking.
Well, quite a bit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So like here, for me, that's why I say it's flat. I just feel like everything's on. There's no dimension to him, right? There's no depth to him. It's just like he's just standing in front of like I was gonna say in front of a green screen, but if he was on a white, it would just be like he's standing in front of just a wall or something, right? But now there's at least the sense that there's more behind him, that there's more room behind him. So,
Enrique, can you talk to really reflective hair, like Bill and mine, and Linda back there, that the problems with lighting for?
I don't think, if you want to grab a seat, I don't think there's too many issues with that at all. I've never really run into anything. If anything, we can add some like diffusion to make it not as harsh, because this is just, there's nothing on it. But if you added a piece of frost or something, just a piece of see-through paper, paper in front, it would make it a little softer and not be as hot or harsh against the light. It won't contrast as much. But I never run into really any situation like that. The only thing, what I do run into is probably glasses or somebody's bald or something like that, like shininess on that. And I don't carry makeup around, but if, we'll have somebody on makeup to just throw some makeup on it and do that. That works. But this is just another way to make it softer. So here, look up Alex real quick. We can just kind of put it in front. But the same kind of effect, it just, let's see if I can get out of the way. And then all it's really doing is just making it not as harsh as the other one, right? So like there, it makes his hairs even more, there's like a little bit of like the frizz kind of coming out, So instead of that, like there, it's even more than it is with this thing in front of it, right?
You don't have to be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah. But I was not going to say that. I was like, I just say it. But yeah, that's like one thing. So say you don't have one of these, right? And all you have is like a tungsten light. I mean, you can do the same, pretty much the same setup with this, as long as you diffuse the light, right? So the big thing with any, like you can use a household, lamp if you wanted to. The thing with that is that you just want to make the light as soft as possible. The big thing with these fluorescents is that they're soft to begin with. So that's why a lot of people like them, especially on production stuff, is that they're really nice, they're soft, they don't take too much to make them to look good. And like I said, even that one shot that I did earlier with that pellicle thing, I bought the bulbs I bought a little mount thing at Home Depot, $10, and I bought a 2-pack of bulbs, for whatever. I could, if I wanted to, I could definitely use that to light somebody. It's just going to look not as professional, but it'll definitely do the job. More so than anything is if you're going to go that route, is to get a bulb with a high CRI value, right? So I went to Home Depot, when I was at Home Depot, they have the numbers on every single bulb. They just says a CRI value, so like a 92 or 93. Anything above 90 is going to be really, really good as far as not introducing greens. Because if you ever been to like a hospital or somewhere or office, right? If you ever look at the lights, you'll see that they're a greenish tint to them. They have this green tone to them that is just not pleasing. So it's because they're real generic bulbs. They're not, they're not high quality light bulbs. I know somebody talked about LED, so I want to see if I can do the same thing basically with an LED, what we're doing here, make it nice and soft, just to show you that the light doesn't necessarily matter, that it's just how you shape it and how you play with the light. So, and are these just battery powered or are they? I was talking with Kyle earlier. I said the thing I think I see a lot of people do with these is that they just turn them on and just blast somebody without any sort of anything in front of it, right? And like it's going to just give you the funkiest shadow in the world. Oh, that's just the color temperature.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this is kind of a good, so I have my camera set for the color temperature of tungsten, which is like 3800 Kelvin. So that's going to look nice. But if I turn it, so if I make this, this is daylight right now. Now you can see that he's a little bit, because my thing is saying yellow is neutral, and this is introducing the blue light. So he looks a little bit, to me, he looks a little like bluish greenish, almost. So that's a good visual representation. Like make sure whatever color you're using, make sure they all match, and to make sure that you're setting your camera to the appropriate Kelvin when you're doing that. And there you can use the presets if there's usually like a little sun or whatever the little logos are. You can change that. So we got that there. So what if we wanted to do that, right? So we wanted that. So maybe this would be a good example too. Do we have? I brought gels too. I'll see if we can put in a daylight in the back. So I'm going to put the front to. So I put mine that this is daylight. So this should then look correct, right? So all I did was I changed this to daylight, and I changed my camera to daylight. Now I'm still getting the same image. So if I went back to tungsten, then he's going to look even more orangey, right? Yeah. So I did that. But now what's also happening back here is that this light is tungsten. So now this it's not doing it so much here, but in certain people with blondish hair, light colored hair, you'll see that this is more orangey than it should be, or more of a warmer tone. So what we can do to compensate for that is put a gel in front of it, which there's the ones that you use mostly is a CTB or a CTO gel, so correct to blue, correct to orange. And I can kind of show you what we do there. And I can even show you in the front here, but this is my pack of gels. So if we did, it probably would be better to show you in the front, but this would then bring it closer to, is this still at daylight? Yeah, sorry. So it'll match it closer to the daylight look than, that's a little more orangey, yellowish. And it's not a bad thing, but when you're using somebody that had, for this as a separation, that's okay to do that. At least for me, I feel that that's fine. But not if somebody who has a light colored or blonde hair, because it can look greenish or it can look a little bit weird at that point. But If you want everything to be neutral, you can definitely, just throw a gel on there and it'll be fine. And we can even represent that over here on this side. So we'll put that at tungsten, and then we'll put a gel in front of it. And this is knocking down a lot of the light, so it's not going to be as powerful, but it gets us back into that daylight look. And I can probably just scoot in closer. Sorry. So that's going back to, that's from tungsten, this is going back, making it back to daylight, which my camera is balanced for. So if I did that, oh, sorry. Yeah, it's just because this knocks some of your light down. This one is I think this is a full one, so or a half one, it's knocking a lot of the light down, but essentially what we're doing is just correcting for the appropriate. So you can kind of see, right? So this is pretty harsh, right? The light is harsh. You can obviously see the big shadows coming from the glasses. So if all you have is an LED light, an easy thing to do is just to put a piece of diffusion in front of it to make it soft, right? So make it softer. So, and all I'm trying to do and show with this stuff is that it doesn't matter which light you kind of have. It's just more of how to manipulate it to make it do what you want it to do, right? So if you do something like that, look up again. Let me bring it up a little bit. So from kind of there to there, that is a lot harsher, and then we're just basically softening it up a little bit. So, and it's just, this light source is so small that it's going to give shadows no matter what, but like if you had a lamp or you had something else, putting some diffusion on it is definitely going to make a world of difference. Or even like a shop light, something like that. But just kind of realizing that you can do stuff if you can modify the light.
Do you have different levels of diffusion paper, like even for like the white ones?
A lot of these are like half. I usually do a half just so that if I want to double it up, I'll put it two. Put two together. Sometimes you'll notice, like if you're outside in say we're out in the morning or midday, the light, the blueness of the sunlight is not going to be as blue, right? So, but if you're later towards the evening, it starts to get even more of an intense blue, right? So at that point, if you want to compensate for it, then you know that you would need an additional layer of blue to match the blueness of the outside light. That's really kind of the only reason. But for me, I prefer just having the halves just so I can do that. Or you can do quarter too, but at that point, if you want to stack it up, you have to just remember that you have to, whatever you go with, just remember you either have to double or quadruple it if you want to kind of introduce more and more blue.
So matching all your light sources, different types of lights, and then also making sure they're properly balanced.
Yeah, right? And then to not introduce other lights, right? The reason I told them to turn those off is because those are they could be a different light, right? So if you're if you're doing an interview and the lights are on in the house, turn those lights off because those are going to be a different color temperature than your lights. More often than not, they're not going to have high CRI value bulbs in their house. That's not, or in an office space. So turn off the overhead fluorescence, turn all that sort of stuff off because that's going to make your image look even it's going to make it look ugly, make it look worse.
So just to clarify, if we're going to use our light source, or our own light source, just try to make sure we use as much of our own as possible.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you can, so if you're in a situation where maybe there's a lot of window light, that's where you want to use gels, right? So you're going to match the blue coming from outside, and if you have tungsten lighting, or if you have daylight, then that will match up just fine. But for me, I use tungsten lighting a lot, which is that light over there. Mm-hmm. So if I can find a spot by the window and have the window be my backlight, perfect. I don't have to bring in another light. The sun will be my backlight, but now I know that the light that's coming from in front needs to match the background light, so it needs to be blue. Because if I did the yellow and then the blue in the back, it's going to be some weird green kind of color in between.
I noticed the one shot that you showed us with you were pointing out the open shutters so that you could see outside. There was 2 lamps on either side of the
Yeah, and we were okay leaving those, though. I think on one of them we did put some ND, to knock down some of the light, but we left them to warm because if you walk into a bedroom, the lights are going to look that way. We're not going to match those to match, we're not going to make everything super neutral or super daylight. Sure. You want to have that feeling that they're warm and that's the way they would look in real life. All right, so what I want to do then is I just want to swap out, maybe do a couple different camera setups. So now we kind of see what this looks like. I want to bring in some of the other cameras to kind of talk about the differences of what they look like, right? So maybe we can start with some of the other.
Enrique?
Yeah.
Real quick on lighting, real quick. How would you light someone, say, a host figure in front of the camera, like Jay Leno, you know, hello, good evening, you know, I'm Enrique, whatever.
Yeah, they're probably going to be like with like tons of these lights here, like pretty much bathing them in light. But if it's just somebody, like here's the dilemma you're going to have, right? You have to pump up. You need to have the background lit, but you also need to have them lit as well too. So you have to find this balance between. If you expose for them in the front and you make them look good, more than likely the background, if it's not lit, it's going to look way too dark. It's going to look ugly. So for me, the easiest thing is just like a big softbox. And I have one of these right here that I can probably bring out and show you.
I have two like that.
Yeah,
Two big
yeah, a
ones.
softbox as close to the kind of camera as possible, just to eliminate any sort of like side lighting or any sort of shadow stuff, especially if they're just going to be talking straight into the camera. You know, like for the ones where, like the girl talking into camera, that's what we had. We just had one light next to the camera right, and it was because it was towards sunset that we had another light we brought another light in. But if it was daytime, like earlier in the daytime, it would just sort of been one light would have been enough. How much light is just going to depend on you know what your taste is too for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to bring in that camera. We can maybe try a different one or whichever one.
I've got
Enrique, I'm assuming Red has multiple models of cameras. This, in the spectrum of their offering, is this low, medium, high end?
This is like the medium one.
Okay.
They just came out with, before this past year, they only had really either a Scarlett or an Epic. Those are the names of the cameras. So it was either, you know, either like $20,000 or $35,000. Like that was your price point. So, but now they introduced a new camera, which will be about the $10,000 range, and that's like an entry-level camera for them.
Okay.
But yeah, it can kind of get up there for sure. Yeah.
Are we getting one of those, Kyle?
no. You also heard that 256 gigabytes only gets you an hour's worth of.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that, but yeah, so a 256 gig card gives you an hour worth of recording time.
Is that 4K?
We are considering.
This is 5, so this shoots in 5K, this camera too.
A
And
Canon Cinema camera, which we will be playing with tonight, but probably not Red. It's just not very feasible in terms of data management for what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a running gun. Like I don't use this I only use it for bigger production stuff. Like I don't use it for, you know, something that I need to be moving a lot with because it weighs, you know, I can let you hold it, but it weighs
And they
like
have the
15
rigs
pounds.
for those too, right?
Yeah.
It weighs how much?
15 pounds, like all together. So it you know, like the other day we were doing a lot of handheld stuff from yesterday, and you know, at the end of the day, like my back, you know, is killing me from holding it all day. So for me, right away, the big difference is you can see there's. Well, I don't know what the settings are. Let's take a look. Bring it down. Like, what's the? Gotta stop at.
yeah,
So for me, right away, I don't know if anybody would be able to pick anything out. Like, what is there any sort of visual difference between this and maybe the red camera that we had right now?
This is grainier.
Yeah, that's one for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things for me that kind of sticks out.
what camera is this? The C100?
No, this is one of the ones you guys have. The Sony.
Oh.
So I'm actually cycling through the camera's picture profiles, and this is what Enrique was talking about in terms of contrast. It does have different modes
Yeah.
in terms of what it can do.
So if you go, there was one that was
This
pretty.
is the default that the camera is normally set at. This one's actually my favorite. It's just a little less contrasty.
And then there's that one that's really baked in. Go to
And
there.
what is the one that you
Yeah.
chose, Kyle? What is
Picture profile number 5.
it?
So this one is more of a baked in look, right? I'm sorry, let me finish
Oh,
this
yeah,
thought
yeah.
real quick. So this one, like I mentioned before, like generally when I shoot with this is like a flat image, you know, a flatter image, and you can manipulate. So this one is more of a baked in look, like it's really contrasty. There's a lot, you know, there's the blacks are really dark, and there's not a lot of So when you record to this, you're not going to have a lot of flexibility in spreading that, expanding the color space or expanding the darks and the lights. And like that post stuff is like a whole different topic altogether. But for me, I tend to like something a little bit on the flatter side, so that you have some ability to adjust things in post.
Yeah, and then someone commented on how the image is grainier on the X70. There's two major factors that play into that. The sensor in both the Red, the C100, and even the Sony EA50 that we have available for checkout, this sensor is smaller. That means that there's just less area to capture light. This is a 1-inch sensor, so if you go diagonally corner to corner, it measures to 1 inch. In the Red, the C100, and the EA50, it's a super 35 millimeter size. It's the same size as a piece of film if you were to look at cinema film. So this sensor just isn't able to capture as much light. The other factor is the lens. The lens in this camera is built in. We aren't able to change the lenses. All of the other cameras we're going to look at today have the ability to change the lens. This lens, its iris or its aperture does not open as wide as potentially as the other lenses that are available to the other cameras. But this is our most popular camera simply because of its ergonomics. It's easy to handle, its weight, you can hold it all day and not feel like you got to go see a chiropractor. But that's the trade-off there. Smaller sensor, built-in lens.
Does this have a flat profile on there? Log or anything?
It does not have a logarithmic picture profile, but picture profile 5 and 6 are its cinema profiles to try to get you as flat as this camera can put out. So less contrast, less saturation, so that you have that option in your editing.
Yeah, the other thing too is that the smaller chip sizes, you don't have as much depth of field, right? So if you saw when I had this 85, I think I was shooting at, I was at 3.2, but even with that, it looked like the background really fell off, and there was, it looked like there was a nice creamy background behind him, right? On this one, you can definitely clearly see the lines and everything behind him. It looks really sharp. It's just because the sensor itself is small that you're just not able to get that depth of field in there. The depth of field is widened. It's not as narrow as like one of these sensors, or that one, or even the C100 too. It's just a little different. But there are some ways to kind of fake that too, right? I mean, one thing to do that I've seen people do some like amazing stuff with like some of these things as well. I mean, one thing is to kind of get back and zoom in a little bit. That'll kind of fake a little bit of that depth of field. How do you?
What are the range of prices of these three cameras?
The Sony X70 starts at $2,000. You can find it on sale occasionally for about $1,700 or $1,800. The Sony EA50 is about $2,500. The Canon C100, which we might look at next, is also. Sorry, you look.
Menu.
Oh, it's right underneath the joint.
Oh.
Yeah. Is also this Canon C100 is about $2,500 as well, although it does not come with the lens, whereas the EA50 would. And then I don't know if you heard Enrique, the Red packages, their newest bottom model, it starts at about $10,000.
Yeah, ready to use. I think the body it's like $6,000, but to really use it, you're gonna spend $10,000 to be able to even shoot anything with it. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
You're just buying the engine.
Yeah, it's just like buying the engine and that's it. So another thing that this camera is, it's set at 30. So maybe I don't know if people that'd be somebody kind of talk about, but so there's the different film modes, right? 30p or 24p, right? There's 30p is kind of for broadcast television, things like that, whereas 24 is kind of the standard for film look. So that also plays into what the image looks like. I don't know if it would show too much on this if we switch from 24 to 30.
Yeah.
Just because of the smaller sensor, but.
It's Jacob the intern, right?
Yep.
Have you worked on a production before?
Just my own stuff, but
This
nothing.
camera is
so
now in
you know what a
24
gaffer is?
frames per
Yeah,
second.
so
I've heard of it. I have no.
it looks. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So you were asking about the different diffusion levels, right?
Yeah.
So you should Google this. Google gaffer diffusion levels.
Okay.
You'll see certain things like opal and then numbers like 60 or 120.
Okay.
What they'll do is they'll put those in front of their lights to actually get different levels of diffusion. But they'll shout out those commands like give me the opal or give me
It's
the
just
120 right now
Oh.
to tell the grips
Oh, okay,
what
nice.
kind of lighting they want.
Is that, so a gaffer is like a type of equipment?
No, a gaffer is a person that's a position on a production
Oh,
company. Yeah, so the
okay.
gaffer's in charge of the lighting.
Oh,
Like all
okay.
the techniques that Enrique is talking about, he's got a title. The gaffer's in charge of like the grips and the best boy grip or whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're on the shoot yesterday. I was just the DP, or the director of photography, so I told him kind of where I wanted the stuff, but I didn't touch the lights or do anything with the lights. We had a gaffer, which was specifically in charge of the lighting, and then we had, it was just like, it was an assistant / grip that was helping with some other stuff. And a grip is just somebody that brings in, they help with lighting and just lug stuff around and whatnot. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So I put this in 24p mode. I'm not sure if we switched this. I'm not sure if you could have visually tell too much, but so 24p. It's a little. It doesn't have as many frames, and it looks more pleasing to the eye. It gives it that film kind of look. So when anybody ever talks about that film kind of look or quality to it, they're referring to generally the look and feel of it, which goes back to the frame rate and what you're shooting at. So, and it just really depends. It's a preference. I generally always shoot everything in 24p. I never shoot anything in 30 unless somebody specifically wants something to be shot in that. So, I mean, I think we all kind of agree the image just looks a little more grain introduced into it. It doesn't look as much depth as the other camera. And it had to do with the chip and then also with the lens in front of it. Those are the two big things. Because we really didn't change anything of the lighting. It's just basically the camera and what it kind of produced. So we can go. Let me pop in. Do you have an HDMI I can put in the C100? So this is another for me this is like a workhorse camera. This is super. Can I borrow that?
And what is that?
It's a Canon C100. So it's like their entry-level cinema camera. This is the first generation, and I think the price just went down to I want to say $2,300 or something like that. 25, yeah. Which I didn't buy it at that price, but when it first came out, it was $6,000 for the camera. So they're Mark II, the version 2 now. So that one, I think even that one got a price reduction.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I have it right now.
Yeah.
So this is definitely like an easy way to get into like a cinema kind of look without obviously paying through the nose for a crazy expensive thing.
We are considering purchasing one for CMAC.
And what camera is that you're referring to?
This is their
the Canon C100.
That comes with just the body, doesn't it?
Just the body handle, side handle. So one of the things the reason I like this a lot is that it has these built-in like XLR and all that sort of stuff or it's a handle, but it plugs all into the camera. Whereas my Red, I don't have anything. Like if I need to record audio, I gotta bring an audio equipment with me.
Yeah.
There's a device that I actually just purchased today. There's a little box that you can buy that you can plug stuff in there, but for most stuff, like the commercial stuff from yesterday, we hired there was a specific audio guy that brought his own gear and everything, and I don't even mess with the audio. It's just, that's his job is on set is to just record the audio.
So are you saying the Red doesn't record audio at all?
No, it can record audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have for scratch audio, there are these little microphones, and when I say scratch audio, is that they're just little cheap audio. Is because if I didn't have this plugged in, I wouldn't hear anything, and then when I try and sync the audio with the video, it would be forever. Not impossible. It would take a long time to inch it till you kind of get it exactly right. So this, all it does is you just barely hear a little audible, and that's all I know. Especially when you're using a little clapper, that little spike, then you match up the audio with the video. And there's software that does it for you. But
yeah, the Red is primarily designed to be worked with a separate audio unit.
Whereas this one is definitely more run and gun. Like you can, it's like, for me, it's one of the better cameras for even like somebody just starting or somebody who does a lot of like on the go kind of stuff.
Will you be talking about the difference between still lenses and cinema lenses?
Yeah, we can, yeah. Why not?
Do you use the C100 or the red for a wedding?
If I was, yeah, I would do the C100. Just for me, it doesn't make sense to deal with that much data. Like a wedding, I can do, if I do a wedding, I can use maybe 30 gigabytes of stuff for a whole day. Whereas if I shot on that, 1 hour, I'd probably be, have like half a terabyte of stuff for a day. But yeah, there's certain projects like we did stuff for Fresno Pacific, where we had, 500 or 600 gigabytes for a day's worth of shooting, and if we have 2 or 3 days of shooting, like easily one project can be a terabyte of data just for one 30-second commercial. So you kind of see this you can see that depth, like I kind of mentioned. The background is a little blurry. Let me bring those guys.
What kind of lens do you have on?
This is a 50 1.2, a Canon. These are all the lenses I have are still lenses. So from DSLR lenses. I don't have any cinema lenses at all.
Yeah.
Cool.
So like on that, and that's definitely one of the factors that makes a video look more filmic is the lens, the lens choice. So right here I'm shooting at 1.2, which is very open, so I'm getting that nice kind of creamy background. If I stopped up, which basically I close off the shutter, then I'll see more and more of that the background kind of coming into focus. I can kind of get it closer to what the other camera was at.
If you close the shutter, you see more of the background going into focus?
Exactly. Oh, coming into focus, right? So like right there, I'm at 7.1 is my aperture, and I can clearly see the lines and everything in the background, that little cable. Whereas before, where I was at 1.2, I couldn't even make out that there was that. I didn't even know that cable was right there. I thought it was just part of the background. So let me go back down to 1.
What lens does that camera come with?
It doesn't come with any lenses.
Oh. So then, what's the price of a 1.2?
So that's it's called zebras. So, but they tell you when things are becoming overexposed. So if I keep going, like that's going to be, if I bring it into post afterward, if I put it on the computer, that's going to be, I won't be able to recover that area. It might look okay on there, but if I ever wanted to bring that back down, there's no information for me to pull it down from. So generally, I try to avoid that. And I use another tool. I don't usually use that too much. There's a thing called a waveform, and that's usually what I use more. But you're probably only going to find this in like the cinema kind of cameras. A histogram is probably more common in like these types of cameras.
Yeah, our Sony cameras, the X70 and the EA50, have histograms to make sure that you're not overexposing your image. And then, like I mentioned, the sensor in the EA50 is similar to in size of the C100, and it does have the ability to have interchangeable lenses. The lens that we have on there isn't quite cinema style, but we have the ability to mount these Canon lenses. So if you build your own library of Canon still or cinema lenses, you would be able to use them with the Sony EA50. We have the adapter for that.
Yeah, so kind of going, we had asked about what's the difference between a cinema lens versus like a still photography lens, right? So one of the big things is that on a cinema lens, you'll have all your aperture values and everything is on here, and the throw, meaning the point from what is in focus and not in focus, is a lot greater, right? So if you look here, so look up real quick, Alex. So he's in focus there, and if I wanted to be out of focus, like that little bit of movement that I just barely went like that, like I'm out of focus. Whereas on a cinema lens, you can go like the whole thing like that, and then that would be the equivalent of just me moving that thing. And it's helpful, especially if you're trying to track somebody coming down. They're walking down the hallway, and you want to move them. Like here, I find it difficult sometimes to try and track people because I gotta just barely move like millimeters, to move that distance. Whereas if I had a cinema lens, I can just easily, I can feel my way through it. I have a big wide turn, and it feels more natural versus, just trying to feel by barely even touching it. The other thing too is that it has an aperture ring. So so there'll be a focus ring and there'll be also an aperture ring. So you can change here, if I want to change the aperture, if you look on the screen, as I change it, you can clearly see that there's that, like there's the steps of it being changed, and that's basically the aperture going up and down. Whereas if there was an aperture ring, it would be a really smooth, you wouldn't even, they do it all the time, you wouldn't notice that there's the aperture is opening or closing because it's really smooth. They'll have somebody, a lot of times one will do the aperture and one will do like the focusing, or somebody will do focusing separately. Like a lot of times on movie stuff, the cinematographer very often will not do focusing. Like it will be a separate person that just, all he does is just focus, the whole movie. That's his job, is to focus, a focus puller. All right. Anything else? I think you can clearly see this looks more in line with like the red kind of look. I would say let's bring in that other camera too and see if we can kind of get that.
Yeah.
And he says, do you want to check if they have that adapter? Maybe we can at least show it before
Charlie,
and after.
Charlie, can you check the closet and see if we have the Metabones adapter for the EA50? Oh, right. Although this one doesn't have.
Yeah. It's not gonna. I wonder if I can get it to show on here.
Rehab is what we learned
Sorry.
in 30,
Points
and then
coming through.
115 yesterday,
You want to talk about the waveform real quick? Let me see if I can output that on.
No, I mean, my biggest concern with cameras is.
So yeah, there's multiple ways to check and see if you're overexposed or underexposed. The Canon cameras, their cinema cameras, have something called a waveform, where the closer to the top you are, the closer to your maximum exposure. The more towards the bottom you are, the more likely you'll be underexposed or not have any light.
Yeah, if you want to visually see it, you can come back here too and take a look at that.
Yeah, the Sony cameras have a histogram, and it's basically a waveform on the side. The waves closer to the left are going to be darker and more likely to be underexposed. If the mountain of data is towards the right,
it's kind of like
brighter.
it's a different representation of a histogram, the level from 0 to 100. So anything underneath 0 is going to be totally black. You're not going to have any information there. Anything above 100 is going to be that. And you can kind of, like, I kid around, but it's almost kind of like the Matrix, right? So that's actually Alex right there, and the hot spots that he has, like the bright areas on the screen. So if I move it, now he's on the right side of the frame, like it's there, right? It's a visual representation of what's on your screen.
So we have this
Exactly, that's where
adapter,
it's at.
so we can use
if I
cinema
bring
lenses or
the aperture down, everything's dark, then that's flattening that waveform. So if I'm just bringing the aperture up and down, but now. So ideally, what you want to do is not go over and not go under. You want to keep it there, and I like to kind of keep it. It really depends on the scene, but for the most part, like that 90, 95, keep it around there, just so you have a little bit of, it gives you a little bit of play afterwards.
We don't have to do the L with the red ring around it, but it's standard.
Above, yeah, like above this line is good. 90, 95. If you're out in the sun and you get a little bit of 100, it's not the end of the world. For me, because it's a sun, but you wouldn't want to do that if you're indoors and
Like you're saying, it depends on the scene and what you're trying to build and what you're.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So do you expose to the middle, Enrique, or?
No, so this one is a visual representation, so it changes, right? So that's her. This is like, I think Alex might have mentioned it one time when he was helping me out. It's like, it's almost like the Matrix-ish. You look at it. This is her. That little blob is her hair, and that is there. This is his face, because that's the brightest part of his body, right? So I pointed at the light. That's going to be. Then that's the light, and you can tell it's blown out because it's telling me on this zebra, but it's also showing me up here too. Yeah. My red doesn't have like a weight. It has a histogram, but I also have a different feature which is kind of cool. Which maybe after we do this, I can show you that too. It's called a geoscope, but that one is really cool to kind of see some stuff. Yeah.
And what you're doing is just adjusting the aperture, correct?
Yeah, to show you, I was just adjusting the aperture. Yeah, but you can balance it out a bunch of different ways. You can do the ISO, throw an ND filter, that will bring it down too. ISO, aperture. The ND filter, yeah, I'll use the reason I would use it, and then maybe,
Oh, absolutely.
here, let me plug it back in real quick. Let me just show why you would use an ND filter, because this is super easy to demonstrate with that.
Metro out groups and skill building groups that are relatively cost effective.
All right. So,
Spending a lot of money.
No, okay, I can see it, yes.
all right. So here, if you like that creamy background look, right? We're shooting at 1.2, which my lens is all the way open. So I want to maintain that, but let's say, let me crank up the ISO. Okay. I like, I want it to be at 1.2. Let's just say my ISO was fine, but I know he was too bright, right? So in order for me to still maintain the 1.2 without adjusting anything else, is I use an ND filter. So if I go, so that's without an ND filter. That's 6 stops, and then that's 4 stops. So, and it tells you here, right? So basically, you're blocking 4 levels of lightness coming into your sensor. So when I say like they're kind of like sunglasses, like think about that way, right? You're putting like one set of shades, another set of shades, another set of shades to kind of bring you, yeah. Because the other way you can do it, if I wanted to not have anything, and then I can just adjust with the aperture, but now what I'm losing is that depth of field. Now this background is not nice and blurry and pleasing, right? Visually pleasing. So what I want, for me, what I like to do, I'll back up to 1.2, and then I'll just, yeah. And now I just put 4 stops of ND. Now the background's blurry and a lot more pleasing for me. Yeah, I mean, the better the glass, like these, this is the high-end Canon L series glass. Like one of these is like $1,500, or or it could be like $2,000, depending on what lens you get. They're just better quality glass, and you can tell. That's that's one thing that when you move up, you'll notice that the glass really matters, right? I can put a kit lens on this red, and it'll look crappy. It won't look good. But if I put the glass in front of it, it'll look even that much better.
You have these tripods filming up higher than Alex? Is that
Oh no, I think we just had moved it. I don't think it wasn't a choice that I made or anything. It was just the way it was.
Is there a certain standard?
Generally, if you're gonna do an interview or somebody, like at their eye level, right? So whatever, if this is at, you want it at their eye level without shooting up or without shooting down to somebody. And those are all kind of other tricks too. Like if you want to have somebody seem a little more powerful, you shoot up at them, right? If you want to make them seem a little less, then you shoot down towards them, right? Or somebody, it can be like if you shoot slightly down to a female, it can make them seem a little like, maybe not as big, or lose a little weight. Just the camera angle, the focal length matters a lot too. Like if I was to shoot a woman that, depending on what it is, I wouldn't use a wide lens on them. I'd use something with a little more telephoto, like a 50 or 85, because it'll compress the image a little bit more. It'll make them look more of a slimming look versus.
Could you repeat that, please? That's not that funny. No,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a woman.
Yeah, a guy too, but I think it makes you can visually see it better when
What if there's a fat baby and you want
to look even fatter? It's a super wide angle. Yeah.
GoPro?
Fish eye.
Are you using
That baby looks as big as the
Oh, you're rolling.
I know. When she pulled
That was a
it.
wide shot.
She gets it from tiny and the baby was really big.
Well, when they used a longer lens, it didn't
Make it
look
in your
Yeah, we were kind of close in that first scene,
Oh, he snapped me.
and that's probably a good example of that too. The baby looking humongous because we were at a wide lens and we were close to the baby. When she walked towards the window, it wasn't as bad, but when she was right in front of it, the baby looked, like you said, almost as big as the mom. So this is one of the cameras you guys have here, and then we put in one of my lenses on it. So we're at.
What are you looking at? Oh yeah. Oh, just turn the wheel.
How can you kind of bring people's attention back so it's not so scary? Would you rather not?
I have a lot of rear mic on Enrique.
Oh, okay.
If they don't want to pay attention.
I just have to sort, I have to.
Focus.
Yeah. ADD
Focus
head, that's not easy.
Yeah.
Did anyone notice what Kyle was saying as he was carrying the tripod over here? He was yelling out points, points, points. So in the industry, whenever you're carrying something around on set that could potentially stab or scab somebody, right? You scream out points, 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 so you can tell everyone to get the fuck out of the way so they don't get hurt. Because when you're moving, you don't have time to be careful of everyone around you. A lot of times the director or the DP is going to be like, now, now, now. A lot of times talent will have a sort of moment that they need to be ready for. And if anybody's in the way, then they just yell out points, points, points.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
And when I first heard that on set, I was like, huh?
Game show, points.
Yeah.
Give him some extra credit.
Exactly. So it's
There's another reason for saying points too, and that is, here you see with a lot of little rubber things on them, but if you're on actual ground, instead of the rubber piece, you can screw the rubber piece back on some of them, and there indeed is a metal point, which if you were carrying that around and somebody
Imagine
banged your
foot.
foot with it, you're now in the first aid station getting a bandage on your torn leg.
Sounds like a from experience.
No, I have a tripod with points.
Okay.
I used to date a cellist.
There you
She
go.
used that on me.
So this is the other camera that you guys have here, the Sony
EA50.
Okay. EA50? EA50. So there's an adapter that you guys have available here as well, and I put on one of my lenses. So you can kind of see that this now gives you more of a pleasing image, right? This is a little blown out. I don't know how to change the settings on this to even it out, but
And this is one we have to get checked out to use, right?
Yes. This we have available. If you've taken the field class, which everyone here has, there's just a couple things the first time you check it out that we would show you that's different than the smaller Sony.
But yeah, so this one definitely you can get that look, with the camera that you guys have available here. This is with this adapter. I think what aperture is the one that it comes with? What is the lowest f-stop?
It's an f4,
Okay.
so it won't get as open as these lenses here. If you're interested in investing in a lens for the EA54 you're using to have more cinema look, I can refer you to some. Canon has some lenses for as cheap as $110 that will
Yeah, like that 50 millimeter
Yep.
1.8 is perfect.
Not bad at all. And Sony has some lenses starting in the about $500 range that would also mimic a look very similar to this.
Yeah, and one thing to think about. I mean, I know sometimes it's like it's a lot of money. Obviously, $500 is still a lot of money. But the lenses, like I've had these lenses forever. Some of these are 10 years old, if not more. So they stick with you through different camera bodies, right? So before I used to shoot on a DSLR, Canon 5D Mark II. Then I moved into C100, and then I had a different camera, which was a Blackmagic, and then now I have the red. But the whole time I just use the same set of lenses that I had, continued with it. So all you do is you buy different adapters. Like the red has adapters for Nikon lenses, adapter for Canon lenses, and there's adapters for PLN, which is like the cinema line lenses. So there's adapters for everything. Like this camera has an adapter for for Canon as well. I'm sure there's one for Nikon. So that's one thing to think about, is that generally the bodies are going to come and go, but the lenses will stick with you. I'm sure I'll have those lenses probably till I die, or give them to my kids or something. So they'll be around for a long time. So, yeah, if they're an investment more than anything else, and they're not going to be in 2 years. You're not going to be like, why did I buy that? Now it's worth less. And they generally, as long as the higher end lenses for sure keep their value a lot. I can probably still get close to what I paid for my lenses back in the day still now. So
What's the lens that comes with this?
It's a f4, so it doesn't go super wide open, but it's I think 24 millimeter to 200 millimeter. So it's got a pretty deep zoom.
This is f4 on it, so it's not as. I put it at f4. This would be the lowest blurry background you can get. It still doesn't look as much. It doesn't look as I guess I don't know, like less depth of field as that one. This one still has some depth of field even at f4. If you were to use the lens that it came, that it comes with, you'll still have a little bit of a depth of field. But like if you bring your own lens, or even the other option too. A lot of times, I know people still that just rent a lens for a specific day. You have a client that's using it, just bill it to them and say, hey, I need certain lenses, or charge for your equipment, and then go out and rent the lenses. And they're pretty cheap, and you can get like a lens for like $40 for a weekend, or even here at Horton Photo, they rent lenses there too. So that's another option too. If you want to just experiment with the lens, maybe you're not sure if you want to buy that lens, go rent it for $40 and then try it out. And if you like it, great. Now you can go out and buy that lens in the future.
Oh, that's cool.
Very helpful.
I have a question about this lighting right here. If we were to make the background black, I know I took a picture of it earlier, but it just seems like set up because this light's on him, this light's on him, and you have the paper, what is that called again? Diffusion. If you were to take the black board, where would you necessarily set it?
It might not work too well. It would probably be, I would probably want to black out the front light, the front light, but it might not work too well. But you kind of see it's going. It's just because the source is so small. If I probably put it like here, it might work a little better. But
and then oh, I see.
I'm basically preventing the light from going.
Right. You had that light.
Yeah, I had that big one there, which was a little softer, and it was a little easier to kind of control. This one, the beam is like this. We're super narrow, right? So it's a little harder.
Narrow, the more control you have of the light in a way for this particular thing.
One of the other directions you could go in this studio is we have a black background, a gray background, a white background, and a green screen. So you could play with that a little too.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, like he was saying, all you got to do is bring in a black background, and it'll probably solve some of the problem there altogether. If you have a black background, even just with my shirt, if this is the whole material, you can kind of tell that would probably turn black, and you'd have that. Rafi? Like one thing too is just using a black background. You can kind of see on my sweater if I'm there. Like if you just had a black background, it would probably go away. And you could probably flag it a little bit too to make it even darker, so that you don't get any spill whatsoever on the background. Like you still do that same trick, but just use a black background to prevent any sort of light from coming back there at all.
Got it.
Have you heard of a 3-point lighting system?
No.
I'll just Google that. You're going to find a lot of what you need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Backfill, key light.
Yeah.
3-point lighting system.
Yeah. So what we were doing earlier with that one here, and then I have this card bouncing back out. That's essentially a 3-point. 1, 2, and then you have this third one coming back here, or use two of those fluorescents. One here, one there.
Okay. Yeah, so, okay. So it's kind of like you're putting a name on what we were talking about?
The place this light is most important is to give him some depth, so that
some separation.
So that he separates out from the, well, here, you can see a little bit on my hair.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's putting a little line here between the background and his head, and I'm going to say almost subconsciously for most of your viewers, the brain will say, he's here and the background is back there, rather than he's here and the background is right here.
Yeah, we can kill it just to kind of to show that too. It's just like everything just seems like on the same plane, whereas a little bit to look towards that.
See, it adds dimension to the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
You're denying that lighting is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lighting is definitely key for a lot of stuff. And then, like all this shoulder, all this little light, that all adds to your production, the value of somebody shows you a video like this, you're probably more likely, just like a Hollywood film, they have so many lights on those things where they're lighting every single thing, it's just gives you the illusion that it's that much more, production value's higher, it looks better, it looks, more pleasing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any other lights that we have in here that we can kind of play with?
And we just have the fluorescents, the tungstens, and the LEDs. We have a medium-sized refa. I know you brought your large refa.
Yeah, we can bust that thing out too.
One other
thing, we can even do like an overhead, like super dramatic thing like that too.
Yeah, let's do that.
And we can mess with that.
Can we also do 2 models with different skin tones, like a couple ranges they need to talk in the same
Yeah.
or anything.
Yeah, and then that's going to come down to more of the balancing of the lights, making sure they're all the same, they're consistent, and then matching that with the settings on your camera. I don't think the light plays too much of a thing in that.
Okay.
It's really comes down to more of making sure that you have the settings and the lights all match.
Okay.
Let me get a sandbag real quick.
The bottom.
Is autofocus for amateurs?
Yeah, I never use autofocus. So I would say get used to using manual if you can. And there's different tricks. I mean, there's like the C100 has a thing called a focus peaking, and I can show you, demonstrate that a little bit. So basically, whenever it's in focus, it'll turn whatever color. It could be like a blue or a red or a green, and that'll tell you, like if you wear glasses, like you, it might be helpful, to do that, because the screens are so small. Like even for me, like this is nice, but if I'm shooting on one of those, like it's even hard for me sometimes to judge, am I for sure in focus or not, and there's little buttons you can zoom into the frame and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, using manual focus as much as possible is going to be.
Will autofocus lenses work the same if you just have them in manual focus mode?
Yeah. So these are all autofocus lenses, like the 50 that I have on here. The other one, there's a button to switch them into manual mode, and then it works. There's an upgrade that you can send the C100 in to do. It's $500 for it, and then it gives you that autofocus ability, and it's good for tracking subjects. So say somebody's walking, you can just follow them, and the camera will do the job. From the examples I've seen online, it works pretty good. It's not 100, it's not 100%, but 95%, 90%, it's pretty good. But still, I think at the end of the day, for me, I'd rather just focus myself and make sure that I know that it's getting everything in focus. So one of the shots that, I don't think I pulled it up on there, but we had this guy, it was still in that bedroom, and we needed to play it like it was a hotel room and he was on his computer doing some work. So we had a desk lamp that was sitting there it was a dresser. We pulled the dresser, we basically blacked out all the windows with just some cloth, like a blanket, blanked out the windows, turned off all the lights, and then all we lit him with was just that little lamp. A little bit on he tilted it a little bit on his face, and then just on the paper were white, so that even helped bounce some of the light back into his face as well. So that looked pretty, that was a pretty cool trick to kind of use, it blacked out the background, and all we lit them with was just that practical light, which was just the lamp from the desk. So that's kind of what I want to do here, is just kind of show a little bit of that, definitely a lot more dramatic kind of lighting. So almost kind of like interrogation style.
The rate.
And then if we kind of block this a little bit, that'll kind of eliminate something from coming out in the background. We'll probably even do a little bit more this way. I think those other lights are probably, are those lights on or something? I think these other lights are probably just introducing some lights back there.
Bouncing
but, if you were to cut the lights, then it would look even more, super dramatic. Right?
Oh, wow.
And all we're doing is just putting a light above his head, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this could be anywhere. This can be in your kitchen. This can be, in a bedroom, living room, and you don't really, tell me what you did. Where's the body?
Can you turn it back off or something? I just want to take a picture. Two people will take that. Okay. Thank you, Kyle.
Striking.
Wait.
Yeah. So another super, just put it right above their head. Even something as simple as just like if you have a floor lamp, and you just held it like that, that would give you pretty much the same effect. Maybe put something on the back end so it doesn't bounce too high up, but because this is basically preventing your light from going up or that way. But if you just had a lamp and did something like that, you'd get pretty close to the same look. as that.
Of course, safety is number one. As you've noticed, Enrique put a sandbag over the leg of the C-stand. You want to have a counterbalance anytime you're going that high or that far out.
Yeah, I probably would have put, if it were somewhere, I probably would have put 2 if it was going to be up for a long time, just in case.
Those are things that the grips would take care of.
Yeah.
The DP or the gap would shout out, sand, sand, give me some sand.
Some beach.
Beach, yeah. Bitch, give me some beach.
And then we're still using the same Sony camera, right? So we're getting the same kind of look with just the camera that you guys can get here. So this is kind of another one that you can definitely do. It's a little dramatic, but a different kind of way. Just a hard side light, and then
What about the whiteboard on the other side, would that fill it in?
yeah, if you wanted to, that would definitely bounce some of the light back in. This would just be more if you just want something super dramatic, right? But if we did this,
Turn the light off.
But that could also be, I mean, just that he's sitting by an open window.
yeah, you can fake a window exactly like there. But if I went like this, you can kind of see. It's just bringing back. It depends how much shadow you want. Do you want it to just be half his face? Do you want it to be?
That's nice, I like that.
You just kind of have to play with it. And if you had a reflector like a shiny material, it'd be even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like for that, that looks kind of cool. Even for a lot of the stuff, my background is photography, so a lot of stuff is the same concept as photography. It's just that the lights are constantly on versus, a flash or a still photo. So like for me, that would even be a pretty cool portrait, of somebody. Maybe not as bright there, bring it down a little bit, but that would definitely be something that I would like. But yeah. So this is just a big softbox. This is a 1,000-watt softbox, so it's going to be really, really bright.
And it will be the only thing you can put on your breaker.
Yeah.
And the only thing what?
You can put on your breaker.
You'll have, if you needed other lights to go along with this light,
Oh.
you would have to go find another breaker
Gotcha.
to put it on.
Just a second.
CMAC has smaller softboxes that are 250 watts, so you could do it and a couple other lights.
Do you have a Lowell adapter for this thing?
Yeah.
So it will blow a 20-amp breaker? If you add something?
If you were to, double up with other. This one doesn't have a power switch, so as soon as you plug it in, it'll strike.
Are the softboxes?
So this is why you stay nice and lean, Enrique. You're just
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. And like yesterday, we were
You
just.
can eat whatever you want. I think I'm going to try to get this done. You must have been burning calories doing that.
Oh, you have no idea. There's like a lot of them.
Striking.
And the gear's not lightweight either.
Yeah.
Like there's C-stands that you see right there with those weird legs. And there's,
Oh, yeah.
I have the
there's
TV
like
on there.
baby stands,
I didn't push
which
it all the way.
are not very baby-like at all. They're just ginormous.
So
stands.
this is just, super soft, it's soft and nice and doesn't, it's not ugly light at all.
And it provides the depth too.
Yeah. And then, the same thing, it's just, I tend to use that one a lot just because it's nice and pleasing. We have this little backlight now, now we're kind of good to go.
So sometimes you can use something like a reflector as a third light.
Yeah, we can kind of show that off right here too, I think.
And this just drapes on that, or if you want white, just drop it there.
I don't know if we can get. But you can kind of see, even just here visually, you can kind of see.
Oh, yeah.
That's just to kind of fill in all the different areas, right? So you want to kind of fill in his chin area. You want to kind of get rid of all those shadows.
You kind of have to experiment with them to use it.
Yeah.
But it's a handy, fairly light thing to check out and have with you.
Yeah, I mean, these are super cheap. You can probably buy one on Amazon for like $20 or something. And they have different colors, right? That's cool. There's like the gold, which will be a little more warmer. You kind of play with that too. One thing that I've done before too is just to add another dimension. So say if we're outside, we're interviewing somebody, but we needed something beside. They're on a wall, but we want to add some dimension to it. So instead of them just standing somewhere and make something a little different, we have the sun outside, and we just bounced the light back into the background, and it made like a little bit of a gradient in the background, so that it just had a different texture to the background instead of it just being flat, right? That's another way to kind of use it. What was that?
A little bit of a 3D effect?
Yeah. So instead of it being, so say, we didn't even have a light or anything. We were outside and we were just using that, but we want to give him some sort of separation. Shine the sun shining out to the background like a wall. That would give this kind of, it would be brighter than what he would. He just had this like kind of a glowing kind of effect to him, so it'll separate him from the background. That's just using a reflector. So you probably can't tell too much, but maybe you can kind of tell there, right? So we're kind of doing a little something to the background, so it would just be, it just adds some dimension to it. Another thing that we've done on sets before too is if you want to add something to the background, is color it, right? So do you think we can scoot this over?
Yeah.
Yeah, they all scoot.
Just bring the white around. So there was a company called Soho. They create a bunch of different programs, and what we wanted to do is create, their logo had red, green, I think blue and orange. So for every person that we talked to, we wanted a different color background. So we had another light that was just for the background, and we colored the lights each time we interviewed somebody different. So that's one way to kind of create a look. Because now we have like a red, kind of background, right? We probably use a different light, but you kind of get the idea. That'll give us kind of a reddish tone. All we did was just swap different colored gels on it, and then now we have a greenish tone for their background. As they're doing their interviews, we just swapped out the different colors just to change it from just a boring talking head video. Just add something to it. Another thing, I don't know if there's a piece of cardboard lying around somewhere. Even just a piece of paper somewhere. Yeah, that's exactly what I was probably going to do. So you can cut. We've done before. We cut lines into it, and then you do this, and then it adds just like a little bit of an effect to the background, right? You probably want to use a light that's going to be a little softer to it, but that would add some dimension. This is just kind of random shape. So we did one where we did really skinny little lines, so there were horizontal lines through the whole board, and then we just put it in front, and it created this cool little slashing effect on it. And it was neat, right? And this is just, I found a piece of cardboard that was laying around at their office building. I'm like, all right, here, knife real quick and cut it. Or cut designs, whatever you want to do. Just something that, like, this is just random, whatever, and that looks somewhat interesting. How we do it. So.
You could even make, treat it like a pumpkin, like just make it with your own faces.
Exactly. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if it was a company that was an easy logo, like maybe a bunch of their little logos or something, right? And you just put it in front and just adds something different.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So gels are another easy way to change things up, or even to create dramatic lighting. Maybe we can do this with Alex here too.
Do the C-stands have a way of suspending those?
Oh, what?
Does the C-stand have an attachment for gripping something?
Yeah, you can buy, there's things called, are they like scissor clamps or something? I forget the terminology for it, but you can, just with this knuckle, like here, just open it up and then just shove the paper in there, and then...
Have a second C-stand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then you just, manipulate the arm and put it in front of it, and then you don't have to have somebody standing there holding it.
Yeah, because they might move.
Yeah.
It's a clamp, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the same, the knuckle from the C-stand.
Right.
So another way is this is another thing that we do more for photo shoots than, or like a cool music video is to use gel and create an interesting kind of effect. So it probably won't show. We probably cut this light first.
That's the one with the switch.
That's all it's like.
That one didn't have a switch. So if we did something where, you know, we want to kind of create more of a mood, look for it. So we can do something blue, and if we did like a red on the other side, that would look really interesting. Is there? Let me turn on this blender over here.
Oh, it'll need to be plugged back in.
Oh, okay, let's plug that thing back in.
Shakespearean.
I'll show you what this. It's too thick. Yeah, and this pack of gels, you can buy it on Amazon for like $30, and it has a bunch of gels. I think they're called Roscoe gels. If you just look for Roscoe gels on Amazon, I'm sure you'll find it.
ROSCO?
Yeah.
COE.
Is it E? Yeah.
Or I can say we could put the blender on daylight. And
That could probably work too, maybe. There's like a,
And
that
then
might
put a
work.
red on the tungsten.
Yeah. So if you have that, look forward. And then so you kind of have that, like, you know, music videos. You probably see that in music videos all the time. Like they have these weird kind of colors and stuff in it. But you know, something super easy to do. We're just basically crossing the light, and then if you look a little straighter, like you can probably do like half and half, right? Like half blue, half red. Yeah, that light's just not as powerful as this one. I mean, I can probably tone it down a little bit. Oh, that's as low as it goes. But you could do half blue, half red. You know, just for like that reminds me of like a music video or something, right? Or go real dark purple, or do some green.
Well, and where you put the lights too. Just like
Yeah.
right now, he's got half the face dark, half light, which is something that you actually used in the Breakthrough commercial.
Yeah, yeah.
Was you had her part dark in one area and light in the other to show some of the depression.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely speak to moods too. So. But yeah, that's, and this is just, I said, just crossing it to make sure we're not getting, you know, splitting it right in half. So. Anything else, guys? Any other kind of lighting that we can kind of discuss? Those are kind of a lot of the stuff that I tend to use. I don't know if there's anything else anybody else had in mind.
Q&A, please.
Yeah.
Last 10 minutes.
Just out there or in here?
Thank you.
Yep.
That was very good.
Great. Thanks. All right.
I was kind of asking while it was going.
Yeah. Yep. Is that it?